How did you come to know some of these mobsters?
I got to know these guys all on legitimate things, really. I mean, with Frank Costello, there was a situation in New York City. My friend Frank Russo had to see him. Frank was Calabrese also. Frank's father was the boss in upstate New York. My grandfather was under him. My grandfather was a captain. I met Frank Costello. It's not like, when you're young, you know not to say nothing. Subconsciously, Frank Russo was grooming me, bringing me around, introducing me to all these guys. And so I was starting to learn the rules. I knew how it worked and so forth. But these people were my friends. So I was able to pick up the phone and call these people if I needed. And it's not like I went around and bragged about it or nothing. I always went out and hustled my own money. But then I met Sonny Franzese. And how I met Sonny was I told you about polyglycol out of Scarsdale, New York. And Walter Feisen, who owned the company, was very deep. We became close friends. And by this time, I had a condo in Pompano Beach. Walter had one in Boca Raton. And what happened was Walter gave his brother-in-law on his wife's side, Nassau County, for a distributorship. Unbeknownst to him, Michael Franzese was involved with them. And they were selling a lesser product, but getting polyglycol warranties. We had a warranty guarantee for 3 years. What they were doing was stealing the warranties under the bottom of the pack they got into Walter's office. By this time, his office was in Tarrytown. And when Walter found out, he was threatening to take the distributorship, and then he starts getting phone calls threatening his life. And he called me up. Hey, kid, he says, I'm getting these calls. I'm nervous. I said, Walter, I said, nobody's going to call you up and tell you they're going to kill you. If somebody's going to kill you, they're just going to kill you. Stop worrying about his bullshit. So then he asked me if I was flying to New York, because I was down at Pompano, and help him close Victor Poptakin, who was the Cadillac dealer down on 11th Street there. And so I flew in. We closed Victor, then we all got in Victor's limousine. We went to Club 21 for lunch. And Walter went to the payphone in those days, and called his office. He came back, he's white as a ghost. He leans over, he says, kid, I know you're wired in. He says, this is fucking serious. He says, would you stay here? I'll pay your expenses. Stay here till you find out. I said, all right. So Frank Russo said, call Lou Perry. Lou Perry was a casting director on 57th Street. I called Lou. He called me back. He says, I'm picking you up at your hotel at 7 o'clock. He said, I'm bringing you someplace. And he picked me up. Lou Perry is the guy who discovered DeMartin, Jerry Lewis also. But he brings me to Trottatori Siciliana on 2nd Avenue. I was owned by Sonny Franzese's son-in-law, Eugene. Nice guy, real nice guy. And as soon as I walked in, I could recognize who was at what table. And, I didn't know who I was going to meet. And that's when I met Sonny. And he had with him his wife, Tina, his son, Johnny, his daughter, Tina, and his daughter, Gia. And Sonny and I sitting down, whispering each other, and I'm telling him what the situation is. He said, I'll look into it. I gave him my office phone number, and I gave him my phone number down in Florida. And then we proceeded to eat. And I ate something I was allergic to. I think it was a fish or something. And man, I was vomiting. I had diarrhea. It was horrible. And they never forgot me for that. Sonny had to take 2 guys had two of his guys bring me to the hospital. And those guys were Red Krabby and Johnny Irish, Johnny Matera. And they brought me back to my hotel afterwards. I flew to Florida, and Walter wanted me to take over the 5 boroughs of New York for Polyglyco and clean it up. And so I agreed. The offer was a good financial deal. And but I took over a week to drive back to New York. I was with the gal who became my second wife. We stopped every place. Just had a great time. And then I had her flying out of Utica, New York the next day, back to San Francisco, where she was from. And we checked into the Ramada Inn. And when the bellboy brought us to the room, the phone was ringing in the room. And I figured it's got to be for whoever the previous guest was, you know? And I answer it, and it's my friend Tommy. He said, "Where the fuck you been?" He says. "That guy in New York's been looking for you. Be in New York Monday. Call Frank." And I said, "How the fuck did you?" I didn't even know what hotel I was going to be or when I was getting there. I mean, this guy had feelers out. As soon as I was there, boom, they called him. And so I called Frank. He said, "Yeah, we got to be in New York." We drove to New York, and we met with Sonny Franzese at the Russian tea room. And the guy who was making the threats was his stepson, Michael Franzese. So I had to go get Walter. I brought Walter. And when you walked in a Russian tea room in those days, when the first booth on the left belonged to Sonny Franzese, first one on the right was Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy's. But we were there before it opened, and that was my first sit down of my life. I've had several after that, but that was
my cousin's husband's family owns that place now.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's interesting, though, to hear the history before that was owned by different people back then.
Yeah, it was owned by different people. Then I guess it closed up for a little while. And then I guess your cousin owns it now?
Well, her husband's family does, not them directly.
Right. And so, I mean, we came out, Sonny sided with us. And while everybody's talking, and Sonny's asking Walter questions, and I'm looking at Sonny, and I'm thinking, he's not understanding what's going on. So I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Sonny, let me explain it this way. Let's suppose somebody was moving your territory in the Bronx that went on, and he looked at me, and with the coldest fucking, first thing you got to know about a sit down, always keep your mouth shut." Yeah. He says, "Don't think for one moment that I do not know what's going on here. Keep your mouth shut. You're young." And I did. I tell you, I mean, his eyes can kill you the way he looked at me. And he sided with us. Everything was good. Everybody was happy. We leave. We walk outside. And Sonny grabs me and walks me to the corner of 57th and Broadway. And he says, "Kid, I like you." He says, "From now on, you're with me." He said, "No matter where you go in the country," he said, "you're with me." He said, "I want you and your family in my house for Christmas dinner." I didn't go, but I mean, I was astonished, And from that day on, he and I became friends. Every time he was in prison, he wrote me, called me. We stayed in touch from that day until a week before his death, a little over a year ago. We were talking. He died at the age of 103. Bek Lover.